Hey guys, it's me, Halloween Dan. Just doing another video today, and this one very different from what I've been doing recently, because today I'm not talking about props or animatronics or anything like that. I'm going back to one of my favourite things to talk about, which is just talking about Halloween itself. I'm having one of those little random conversations where I talk about my love of Halloween and all that kind of stuff. But this one was inspired by somebody who subscribes to my channel. This is for you, Patbo, who messaged me the other day and said, very nicely, I enjoy watching your videos, but I would love to see one where you talk about your experience of Halloween and the things you do as part of your cultural experience of Halloween, how you celebrate it, where you live, because she's lived in the US her whole life and doesn't really know a lot about how different cultures celebrate it. So that's exactly what I'm talking about today. I've touched on this in past videos where I've talked about my love of Halloween and stuff, but I've never actually spoken specifically about this. So that's what today is. So join me. So clearly, I love Halloween. I don't think it even needs to be stated. But that love of Halloween isn't as automatically given to me as you might imagine it is. Because the answer to the question is, where does your love of Halloween come from? You must have, grew up doing Halloween-y things, or what was, how did you celebrate Halloween in the part of the world that you come from? And the answer is, when I was growing up at least, we didn't. And it wasn't. Because, it ain't a big deal where I come from. So first of all, I suppose I have to sort of delve a little bit deeper into this and sort of talk specifically about where I come from. Because, yes, I'm English. Hi, I'm from England. But the UK is a country of countries, and each segment of the UK celebrates Halloween a little bit differently from the next. If you're, say, from Scotland or Wales or Northern Ireland, you might celebrate Halloween a lot closer to the sort of traditional, sort of almost Samhain-like celebration of Halloween, or maybe not celebrate it at all. And if you're from England, like I am, again, you either don't celebrate it at all, or it might be more like what you guys in the US and Canada would recognise as the Halloween celebration. So I come from a small village in the county of Cheshire, and Cheshire is in the northwest of England. Cheshire is famous for two things: Cheshire cheese, yummy, and Cheshire cats, psychedelic cats from Alice in Wonderland. Yeah, because Lewis Carroll was from Cheshire, and he wrote his book here, and Cheshire cat. I don't know why he thinks cats from Cheshire are all fantastical and stuff, but that's the two things Cheshire's famous for. I am, of course, I'm not like a youngster, I'm in my late 30s, so for me, my experience of Halloween is very different from, say, someone under the age of 21. Because when you talk to Americans about this topic, what is it that got you into Halloween? Where does that kind of come from? And when you talk to people in the UK or from England who are under the age of, say, 21, they'll all say, well, I kind of grew up with it, or I saw other people doing it and wanted to do it. I would be taken trick-or-treating or on some sort of haunted trail or something like that, or we did it at school or something like that, and it would make them grow up with this intense love of Halloween and want to replicate it as they got older. That was not the case for me. So let me explain. When I was growing up in the late 80s and the early 90s in this part of England specifically, Halloween just did not happen. It just was not a big deal. And it was a generational thing. Every generation before mine had never really bothered with Halloween. They kind of knew what it was, they sort of understood it, but nobody celebrated it, at least not on a particularly large scale. I've been trying to think of an example that an American or a Canadian might understand, and I can't really think of one, but the best way to explain how Halloween was perceived in the UK, or was kind of treated in the UK at least, is if you've got one of those holidays. So I know in the US you have something called Flag Day. Tell me if I'm wrong, or if I'm inaccurate about any of this, please correct me. But you have a holiday called Flag Day, which is about the creation of the US flag. And although it's a holiday and although it's on the calendar, and people would go, oh, look, it's Flag Day on the calendar, I don't think anyone's booking any time off work to celebrate it, or anyone's throwing a Flag Day party or anything like that. I don't think it's a big thing, right? It's on the calendar, you might mark it, maybe you'll put a flag out, I don't know, maybe that's the thing. But other than that, you won't really go to town on this thing. It's kind of like, you know, you walk into the office, you dropped your kids off at school, you might look at the calendar and go, hey Sharon, how's your day? Oh, it's Flag Day, did you know that? And Sharon would go, click, click, click. Oh yeah, so it is, it's Flag Day, amazing. Click, 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 click. And that would be it. Everyone just gets on with their day, it's not a big deal. When I was growing up, that was how Halloween was seen. Everyone kind of knew what it was on the calendar, but nobody did anything for it. They just got on with their day-to-day lives. And for some people, even to this day, that's kind of how it is now. They just don't, it's just not a big deal. Now, I know there are people in the US who think that way, but I think there's a lot less people in the US who think that way. Most people, I get the impression at least, will at least put a pumpkin out or buy some sweets or candies for kids who are coming door to door. They'll make at least the bare minimum of effort. When I was growing up, no effort was made at all. If you happen to see a carved Swede, not a pumpkin, a carved Swede in the window, that was a big thing. That was the only sign that it was a different night than any other night. Nobody went trick-or-treating. Nobody really had a party or anything. It was just any other day. The only difference for me, and this is where my experience differs somewhat from other people that I grew up around, is that the 31st of October was my cousin's birthday. And our families were quite close, so we would celebrate Halloween in the form of a birthday party for her, and we would dress up as monsters and all that kind of stuff, because people knew what Halloween was. They weren't completely oblivious to it. And because of that, I think I grew up experiencing Halloween in a way that not many other kids did, and it kind of stuck with me. I just enjoyed it. And as I grew up, I loved the autumn time, and I loved all that kind of stuff, so it kind of sunk in. Then I loved all things spooky and ghosty and paranormal and myths and legends and all that sort of stuff. So it all just kind of made sense that as Halloween came around, I would sort of focus some energy towards it. I would say the turning point in England came in the late 90s and the early 2000s. At this point, especially in my life particularly, US culture was filtering through strong. Like, we, for the first time, were getting to see American sitcoms, American kids TV programs, American music TV programs, mainstream. They weren't just something we'd heard about, they were something we were able to actually watch on the TV for the first time. And for me, being around 10 or 11, getting to see all these American movies that focused on Halloween, or American TV shows and sitcoms where there was always a Halloween-y episode, that was a big deal for me. Seeing how you guys in the US celebrated Halloween was huge for me and made a very large impact. And I just started wanting to celebrate it that way. And I think that my generation is kind of the first generation, in England at least, to start taking Halloween a bit more seriously, to actually want to do this sort of stuff, to replicate what we'd seen in American TV shows and stuff. And we weren't happy just carving a Swede. We wanted the pumpkins, and we wanted the smoke machines and the props and the decorations. Thankfully, as enough of us wanted this stuff, the UK's shops and stores started to kind of fall in line and started to bring out more and more decorations and party things and props. And every single year it's grown. It's gotten a little bit bigger than the year before, which people like me are very, very pleased about. And so now I'm bringing up my kids with a full love of Halloween, just as I wish I had. For my kids, I think they're the first generation, I would say, maybe the second, to fully experience Halloween how I suppose you guys in the US and Canada experience it, where it is a normal thing, where it's something on the calendar that's actually worth celebrating. My kids, if I was to tell my kids that we weren't doing something for Halloween, they'd look at me like I just burnt the house down. Like, it's a big deal to them, like it is to me now. And all the traditions, you know, go back 20 years, there was barely a kid trick-or-treating, because Trick-or-treating was always sort of perceived as a bit of a sort of antisocial thing when I was growing up. Like, if you were knocking on strangers' doors after dark, whoa, what are you playing at? You are, you're crossing a line there, guy. Now it's completely accepted, as long as you know the rules, that unless you've got a pumpkin and stuff outside, don't go knocking on doors. But it's still more and more of an accepted thing, and people keeping sweets and for Halloween and trick-or-treaters, and people putting up decorations, even if it is just a pumpkin. It's far, far more commonplace now than it ever was. And every single year it gets a bit bigger. And I'm happy to report that here in the village that I live, Halloween has been fully embraced. There are always going to be some people who don't like it and don't want to celebrate it, and that's fine, you can do you. But I would say with every passing year, there are more and more people who do embrace it, even if it is just in carving a pumpkin. And you see more decorations and you see more trick-or-treaters, and it's great. It's a real great community thing, and you see more and more kids every year. I mean, I do, because I put out so many decorations, but just in general, you're walking around, you see so many families walking around trick-or-treating, each with their little bucket of candy, and all the kids all dressed up, because the availability of costumes as well is massively bigger than it ever used to be. I mean, when I was a kid, again, the only sign that Halloween was anything different than any other day of the week, you'd go into our local co-op, which is just a shop, a food store really, and there would be a like 4 foot by 2 foot sort of stand with some very basic Halloween things. You'd get them basic Halloween plastic masks that kind of cut into your face, and those horrible Dracula teeth that would cut into your gums, them sort of glow in the dark witches' fingers, and like a pack of face makeup. And that would be it. That would be all there was. And it wasn't so that you could go trick-or-treating or anything. It was just sort of to say, oh yeah, it's Halloween, better stick this out and see if anyone buys this crap. Thankfully, things, like I say, have moved on, and England has started to embrace Halloween more and more. It becomes a bigger and bigger thing. There are lots and lots of events now. Every major town and city has huge events now where people go out, and there's parades, and there's community sort of walk around the town where it's almost like a community trick-or-treating trail. The village I live in has one, which I've taken part in for the last 3 years now. It's great. It's definitely an advancing thing. I think there's a long way to go in England to get anywhere near close to how you guys in the US and Canada do it, but in England it is at least a feature now on the calendar, whereas when I was growing up it definitely wasn't really. People just kind of ignored it. They'd turn off all their lights and pretend they weren't home and all that kind of stuff. And if you were a kid that wanted to go trick-or-treating, you were like, everyone kind of thought, whoa, what's your deal, you're weird. And I'm glad to say that that is definitely over. That has fully changed. If you want to do Halloween in the UK now, you're fully encouraged to do so, and it's getting bigger. Thank God. Anyway guys, I just thought I'd do this quick video today, just talking about my relationship with Halloween and England's relationship with Halloween. There's a lot more to it if you kind of want to understand some of the historical reasons why England kind of rejected Halloween. I have made a video in the past where it's called Why England Doesn't Celebrate Halloween, so go and check that out. Go and have a little look at that if you want to know some of the more in-depth historical reasons. Today I just thought I'd talk about how I experienced Halloween growing up and how it's changed and how we now celebrate it. And I hope you found it this much entertaining. Anyway guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Keep spooky. Bye.